Hi, marketers. This is Dot, and welcome to the Marketing Leadership Podcast. With me here is David Meerman Scott, one of the world's leading digital marketing influencers, get this, of all time. We will discuss marketing of the customer, by the customer, and for customer. Sounds familiar? Yeah, stay tuned and let's do this. David, welcome. How are you doing?
Doing great, Docs. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. Abraham Lincoln must have had a hard time saying that in succession, right? Uh, Democracy is power of the people, by the people, and for the people.
Yeah.
That,
Yeah,
exactly.
that's a
That
mouthful you decided to say there.
exactly. So, and that is exactly what we're going to discuss here. Having a customer-centric strategy as a marketer, which is often a scarce commodity these days. But before then, do you want to tell us a bit about yourself, your background, and role?
Yeah, sure. I thought I wanted to be a bond trader, so I worked on Wall Street for a few years, and I was terrible at it, and I hated it. But
I love stocks, by the way, but go on.
I loved the information side, though. So I spent 15 years working at companies like Dow Jones and Thomson Reuters.
Mhm.
And then, in 2002, I was fired from my job, started out on my own. And since then, I've written 13 books. Four of them are international bestsellers. My books have sold over 1 million copies in 30 different languages. And I'm probably best known for a book called The New Rules of Marketing and PR that's now in the eighth edition. And my
Wow.
latest book is called Fanocracy, turning fans into customers and customers into fans. And that one came out a couple of years ago. I wrote that one with my daughter, Reiko.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, guys, if you see a lot of movies, a lot, especially the biopics, they say it's based on a true story. So, this podcast episode is based on that book,
Based
which I'm
on the true
I'm
story.
currently reading too.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, I was one thing you said about your background there stuck to me with the many people that you've reached, whether through knowledge or through consultation and so on and so forth. What would you say is your biggest lesson from engaging, let's put it in the context of the episode, your fans from all over the world? Or what would you say one of the few biggest things that stuck out to you and maybe listeners need to be aware of?
So the one of the biggest things is that so many people um, do marketing the wrong way. What they do is they focus on their products and services instead of focusing on the needs of, and you call them customers, I might call them buyer personas,
Mhm.
people who are interested in a product or service that you might offer, the people who are currently your customers or potentially your customers. Most organizations are just out there trying to sell products and services and only talking about products and services. I actually just wrote a blog post. I sent the push the button just before we started talking.
Yeah, I saw it.
And it's really fascinating to me that Doritos, the snack food company Doritos, just released an artificial intelligence generated app that silences the crunch when you take a bite of a Dorito. And that's really
Oh,
freaking radical because it turns
yeah.
out that many of their customers are gamers. And when you're doing gaming, and you're broadcasting that, live, people are crunching away on Dorito chips, and it's super annoying, but you add that plug-in to your gaming console, and all of a sudden, you can eat your chips, and no one will hear you. I think that's fabulous. What great marketing. Why is it great marketing? It's not about another Dorito chip. It's about the needs of their existing and potential customers. It's about creating fans of Doritos, and I just think it was such a really super cool, thing that, I learned about it only a couple hours ago, and I had to write about it because I thought it was so interesting.
Yeah, that makes sense. I, I think what may have influenced the Doritos story is also data, right? So it's important, just to add to what David is saying here, it's important for you, if you're listening or watching, to look at the data. No one will argue with the data, no matter how our selfish interest or whatever the leadership is saying. It's very, very important. And data also helps you to I guess, calibrate your strategy properly because, it's often said that if Apple listened to everybody's feedback, we'll have a very different phone today. So basically, I would think in terms of speaking to the customer, B2C has a bit of an edge because it's a much smaller space, but I might be wrong. But on the D2C end, which is where I also play, I think it's important to, you know, always listen to the customer as best as you can. Were you going to say something around that? B2B, D2C?
My opinion is B2B is easier, and here's why. Because business to business marketers mostly do it wrong because they think they're
Mm,
marketing to a business. Like let's say you sell a product that's used by airlines. People who
mm,
are doing business to business marketing think, oh, I'm selling to American Airlines. I'm selling to British Airlines. I'm selling to Air Canada. When in
mm.
fact, you're not. You're marketing to people who work at airlines. So, I think the humanity is lost, when the vast majority of B2B marketers are out there, marketing and selling their products and services, and therefore if you do what you said, take a data-driven approach or
Mm.
understand your buyers really, really well, understand the market problems they have, and create interesting information online to help educate and inform them, then you have a head start. And it's much more rare in the B2B world to do that. So therefore, if you are doing it, I think you have an edge. That's why I would say in many ways, B2B marketing can be easier.
Yeah, if done correctly. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. We've also had Mark Schaefer on this podcast, and I read this book. I try to read the books along the line of the podcast interview,
Yeah,
so it
good for
makes a lot
you.
of sense, which I'm already doing in your case too. And the book belonging to the brand, why community is the last great marketing strategy. I mean, like being the last is another topic for another day, but I felt in the spirit of connecting the dots, pun intended. Um, it's it looks like building fans. That's or at least one of the things that needs to be done is building communities around the brand so that your customers are your brand's custodians. However, way you then want to leverage that community is up to you. Would you agree that community is an important ingredient to fandom?
It can be an important ingredient, community, but what I kind of look bigger and I
Okay.
think about the idea of how and why people become fans. And my daughter and I wrote this book, Fanocracy, and we got super interested in this idea of fandom starting about 10 years ago. She's
Mhm.
currently 30 years old. She's an emergency doctor here in Boston, where I live. And at the time we started talking about it, she was still in college, in university. And so we talked about this idea of what we're a fan of. So we said to her, we were talking a lot about this over a couple
Mm.
of years that, on one hand, all of these companies are shouting at us, trying to get us to buy stuff. At the same time, the social media sites, the algorithms are breeding hate and breeding a polarization, especially
Polarization, yeah.
especially
Yeah.
Facebook. But on
Yeah.
the other hand, we both, talked about the things that we love. In her case, she's a big fan of Harry Potter. She's a huge fan of Korean pop music, K-pop.
Mm.
And
Mm-mm.
I'm a fan of the Grateful Dead. You can see it behind me if you're watching this. And
Yeah. I
if you're only listening, I've got a bunch of photos behind me of my favorite band, the Grateful Dead. I've seen them 98 times. I wrote a
Ooh.
I wrote a book called Marketing Lessons from the Grateful Dead with HubSpot's co-founder and former CEO Brian Halligan. Um, and what we learned, Reiko and I, when we started to research this idea of fandom, is that it's rooted in neuroscience. Actually,
Mm.
it goes back tens of thousands of years, this idea that we're safe and comfortable when we're with a group of like-minded people. So in early human history, tens of thousands of years ago, thousands of generations ago, our tribe of people together, that was where we were safe. And if we found ourselves with other humans that we didn't know, that could be dangerous. Well, that's part of our brains now. That's part of neuroscience now. So the more as a marketer that you can create a tribe of like-minded people and get people and you call it community, which is fine, the the better it can be. And one of my favorite examples of that comes from an unlikely source. It's actually an insurance company. They're called Hagerty. And Hagerty does classic car auto insurance, and I'm a big fan of Hagerty. I actually have a 1973 Land Rover that's insured by them, and what they've done is they've done a great job at creating a community, a group of fans, a tribe of people who love classic cars. They have a YouTube channel with over 1 million subscribers. I mean, can you imagine an insurance company, right? Everyone hates insurance and they've got all these fans. So there's no doubt that any business can create fans, and it's really just a part of understanding that people want to be part of a like-minded group of people. So the more that you can bring people together, the more that you can make them feel like they're a part of something, the better your marketing can be.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think what I like most about creating a great community of fans is that you grow from the inside out. And aside from that, you find your product market fit. As a strategist, that is a very common term that we use in while trying to, research the customer. Take me, for example. I've got a TikTok channel where I whistle and hum at the same time. And I have people view each of those videos 1,000 times. Not much, but I didn't know there were people out there that love such kind of strange stuff. Someone able to whistle at home at the same time. So I just wanted to throw in that there is always a market fit for you. Um, and if you want to grow, I think sometimes there's this tendency with aggressive growth, and then people just drop the ball on building fans. I mean, this episode is not about, oh, you need to start building fans now. Our listeners know that they're probably doing that, or they've dropped the ball because maybe the fans are too small or whatever it is, and they are not even looking at the potential retention capabilities of that. They are not thinking about the fact that the world's population has grown to 8 billion. That means it could continue growing. They have not thought about the fact that there is what we call household influence, where people can share a Netflix account and everybody is forced to use Netflix because it's the Netflix gang, as it were, and so on and so forth. So, guys, if you're listening, it's important for you to you're still true to the cause. There are many other examples out there. Ali Davidson, Red Bull, and many of these other communities that are really, really thriving in that area. David, I want to get a bit technical here. So I took the title of your book and split it into two. And I thought to myself, if I were to make a marketing strategy on the Funnelcracy book, what would be in the top funnel or would be in the bottom funnel? So I, it looks like, and you can let me know if I'm wrong. It looks like first you need to turn fans into customers, right? That's where we have all the awareness, consideration, demand generation, and so on and so forth. So, from a marketing tactic perspective, what are some of them? I mean, aside from the radio example, what are some of the other nicer strategies that you've seen out there that companies have used across industries, D2C, B2B, that in a way whereby they've turned fans into customers?
So my favorite examples are companies that do a great job at providing all kinds of different free information to potential customers to get them to become a fan before they even consider whether they can buy a product or service from that company. So, for example, HubSpot, B2B company, they provide marketing and sales software. And I've been on their board of advisors from the very beginning since 2007. I still am on their board of advisors and I've worked with HubSpot since the very beginning when they had only $250,000 worth of revenue when I joined them, and they're now well over $1 billion in revenue to
Mm,
create all kinds of free content. So they have blogs, they have YouTube channels, they have podcasts. They also have HubSpot Academy, which is a free online learning platform that you can take high level courses on marketing, on sales, as well, of course, as on HubSpot, the HubSpot product. And you can take those courses without even being a customer. It's free. The HubSpot annual conference called Inbound happens in Boston every fall. It was in September. I've spoken at every single one of them. And the last one, I think there were 12,000 people on site and another, I think 100,000. I can't remember, a large number of people that
Yeah,
were
it probably I think it's the number one
wa
marketing events
watching
ever.
watching online,
Yeah.
and you don't have to be a HubSpot customer to go to Inbound. And you can learn from HubSpot at Inbound. You can learn from HubSpot at HubSpot Academy. You can learn from HubSpot with their blogs and their YouTube channels and their podcasts. Then, if either you are interested in some marketing or sales or customer services software, CRM service, or if somebody asks you what are some CRM products or marketing automation software that I should look at, naturally you think of HubSpot first. So that is, in my mind, such a great way to do marketing. It doesn't matter what kind of business you are, business to business, business to consumer, B2B, B2C. It doesn't matter. Creating great content is one of the best ways to build fans. And then when you build fans, those fans, some of them may then turn into customers.
Yeah, I mean, that example, shows how you can build demand or orchestrate demand where you think demand may not be possible, right? It's often said these days that, there is a segment of people who know about your products or the type of product, even though they are not using your product. But there are some people that have this problem, or as Ava says, the job to be done, but they don't know who is able to solve it. They don't even know if it's possible to get that job uh, solved or done. And having that kind of tactic that you've mentioned and using that to build the fan base of those who are not yet customers is able to really create that kind of demand. And I think HubSpot has done a great job. Like we're speaking of the migrate, depending on when you're listening, we've recorded over 120 episodes. Not all of them are live yet. And I work on the brief. Every time I do a research on every marketing strategy topic, HubSpot has a post almost 100% of the time. So at that time that they were writing it or they started it, it might seem very crazy because we are creatures of social proof. We don't want to try something new. But if you're listening right now, it might be the seed of fandom that you've sown today, that then become the great brand of tomorrow, basically.
And the other thing that's really interesting about this, Dots, is that so many marketers spend lots of money on advertising. The
Mm,
problem with advertising is if you stop spending the money, it goes away. However, if you create content like you're doing right now with this show, or by
mm,
creating a blog post, or by doing what I mentioned earlier, HubSpot Academy, these kinds of things, they live forever. They're an asset of your business forever. I
mm.
started my blog back in 2004,
Ooh,
19 years ago. And all of
yeah.
my blog posts are still live. And sometimes I go deep into my analytics and I've got some blog posts I wrote 15, 16, 17 years ago that are still generating Google traffic today. And
Wow.
I can't even remember when I wrote in some of these blog posts. I look at them and go, wow, this thing's doing really well. I'm getting lots of inbound traffic from it. I don't even remember writing it. It was so long ago.
Yeah.
But each one of those assets adds up. And over time, you've got a marketing strategy that lives even if you don't spend any more money on it, it lives forever. And it's just such a great tool that not that many people are doing a good job with.
Yeah, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Now it's time to look at the bottom funnel side. Remember, if you're listening or watching, I've split David's book, If I Know Crazy, into two. And now we are looking at the other part, which is turning customers into fans. I am very passionate about this part more because people really talk about it, unfortunately, marketing leaders in general. So thanks for doing that. Also, marketers rarely do it. You know, people these days care about what is the net new customer generated and then just move on. They don't want to There's no thoughts about revenue expansion. There's no thoughts about service excellence or customer excellence and all these things and customer success and you know just continually engaging the customer for life, basically to grow lifetime value. There's so much obsession over acquisition. Now, with that said, if we really look at the ways that you can turn customers into fans, sharing customer stories, for example, and having them being part of your product or brand story is one of it. But there is a side of it that may not be as palatable, which is, for example, customer feedback. What have you thought of, or have you seen businesses take the brave action of using one-star reviews to improve their product and improve their messaging? Because what the norm is right now is that everyone wants to see five-star reviews. And even me, if I will ask myself deep down, I don't want to see a one-star review. I don't want to read what's in there, but I should be reading it and I should be using that to inform my marketing. What are your thoughts, David?
Yeah, that's a complicated issue because,
Mm,
on one hand, there's, unsolicited reviews,
mm,
which I think have value. There's thousands of reviews of my books on Amazon, for example, and other bookseller sites. And many other companies have those kinds of reviews. But what I am absolutely against,
mm,
and I think are way overused, are bothering people, annoying people with surveys. And I think lazy marketers spend way too much money and way too much time doing these dumb surveys that says, trying to get a net promoter score or whatever it is, "Hey, tell us
mm,
about your experience with our products and services." And, you can't do anything these days without a company sending you a survey. I was on the phone, a couple of hours ago with American Airlines for a really quick question, and they said, "After your phone call with American Airlines, please stay on the line for a two-question survey." It's like, "No, I don't wanna stay on the line for."
that's every company right there.
Every company is doing it. Or, my wife 2 days ago took her car to get it fixed, and then when it got fixed quickly, and that's good. But then they said, "Please do us this survey about how well we did." No, I don't want to. So, I think that there's a really big disconnect
Mm,
between a certain type of marketer or customer services person who takes their existing customers and
mhm,
annoys them to try to
yeah,
get feedback at a time and in a way that is not effective, and in fact, in many ways is counterproductive. Because
mhm,
you're gonna get bad data if the only people who fill out your surveys are people who are bored and have nothing better to do, because most people aren't gonna do it. And you're gonna get
yeah,
annoyed when you get all of these emails saying, "Reminder, please fill out your survey." And it's like, "I
yeah,
don't wanna take even 30 seconds to do your stupid survey, I'm sorry." So,
yeah,
yes, your original question, should you pay attention to reviews? I think you should, but I think you have to be very, very careful in any kind of thing that's like a 1 star, 2 star, those sorts of things, because those are are a form of feedback that's a very much in a particular kind of box.
yep,
Did you like your interaction with our customer services person today on a scale of 1 to 10? I don't know, 7? Uh, but that doesn't really provide feedback.
mm,
It's a number. It doesn't really mean anything.
mm,
I sometimes will get a one-star review for one of my books, and then if you read the detail, it says, "The book was wet when I went to my mailbox." Well, what does that have to do with the right?
yeah,
Nothing to
yeah,
do with
yeah,
me.
yeah. It's
The fact that the
destructive
book was
criticism.
wet when you got it, you gave me a one-star review? What are you, insane? Well, I
That's
actually
so funny.
I don't think that companies should obsess over reviews, and I don't think companies should be sending stupid surveys.
That's a very and we welcome that on this podcast, like very advanced, deep perspective with regards to reviews. And I completely agree with you about it. I guess the thing really is serve your customer the best you can, so that that way whatever you get from them is voluntary. And I've done that. Maybe sometimes I could be too smiley or too gullible. So I'm like, man, this exceeded my expectation. How can I give you a feedback? You know? But it's serving the customers first, going above and beyond first. And then, you know, yes, if they come, yes, if you've got auto replies that ask for reviews, yes, if Dot asks you for a review on his podcast, I don't put out review first. I mean, starting this, I've seen a lot of clickbaity thought leadership out there. I don't do that. Some people ask me, "Oh, you should be making money from this." I'm like, I just want to educate people regarding strategy, and if anything comes out of that naturally, then it's an added blessing to me. When you truly want to help, like you said at the beginning, when you truly want to be human, we've had Brian Kramer on the podcast, H2H. When you truly want to help, you help, then every brand goodwill or whatever that KPI is, it will often come onto you. And sometimes it may not be measurable, sometimes it may, but it's just having a balance. I know that, and I'm saying this with all due respect, leadership wants KPIs, leadership wants the metrics, whether it's garbage or real, they want it. So they might want things like that. But you want to do your best to be able to balance it out and also do your best to educate them on saying why there needs to be a meaning behind maybe a one-star view or a five-star review, by the way. Okay. I have one more question for you,
Yeah,
David. But before that,
please.
we will be right back with a word from our sponsor. And when we come back, it's going to be the Dots Rapid Fire. You have actually been firing on all in the past couple of minutes. I'm really, really enjoying this. And we'll be back for more questions around that. Guys, stay tuned. It's the Marketing Leadership Podcast. Welcome back, guys. So, like I said, it's the Dots Rapid Fire. It's the marketing court of law. I think this is the more fitting one. We have Senator David Meerman Scott here, and he has actually been firing on all cylinders. And now we're going to ask him 3 questions, and he's going to tell us the truth and nothing but the truth. Are you ready, David?
I'm ready.
All right. By the way, David is not a senator. That was just a joke. First question: what is your best marketing KPI?
I don't even know what KPIs are, so I'm just gonna say, I mean, yeah, whatever. I'm going to say, how many fans do you have? How many people do you have who love what you do? How many people are would be put out if you didn't exist?
Hmm, interesting. Yeah, I wasn't expecting anything less, actually. That was the exact thing I was expecting, so that's good. Second question: how long do you use social media every day?
I spend probably 30 minutes on social media per day. That's creating content as well as consuming content.
Oh, that's very good. I do about an hour now, and I'm working on 30 minutes, so we'll see how it goes. Okay, last question. What is your favorite marketing quote? I want you to give me like the Ogilvy or Peter Drucker, the sage quotes of those days.
I'm gonna quote myself.
I love that.
And if you go to my Twitter, it's I'm on Twitter. I am DM Scott. That's DMSCOTT on Twitter. And my favorite quote is educate and inform instead of interrupt and sell. And
Mm.
that's been my pinned tweet right now on Twitter. And it's had something like 1,000 retweets, and
Oh,
it's my favorite quote.
Ah, I like that. I like that. Guys, if you didn't hear that correctly, just rewind and put that into your next year marketing planning as well. Okay, last question. We are still in the fanocracy regime, as it were, right? And to have a very good or great or benevolent fanocracy regime, you need a very prosperous brand government, you know, with hired officials. Let's use the word hired, with hired marketing officials. And I think all this we've said from the beginning will not be possible ever if the company is not customer centric. Okay. We've had this public knowledge, so I can say it. There were past campaigns where McDonald's has done some campaigns for women and they turned the logo upside down. Fantastic idea. But for some strange reasons, it backfired because of internal issues around gender. So that's being customer centric as a company and making sure that your initiatives don't backfire. What is your own perspective as a fandom professor, as you know, head of the fanocracy political marketing party? What is your recommendation for marketers? How should we approach that customer centric internal uh, uh, system to make sure that we are able to drive a powerful culture and at the same time drive marketing success?
My biggest thing is just to remember that that we're all human, and the more you can be human in the way that you communicate, the more that you can be human in the way that you do your marketing and sales, the more that you're human, the more success you have, the more fans you build, the more business you grow. And I think too many companies are focused on things that are the opposite of humanity.
Mm.
Figuring out how they can use AI to generate some fake content,
Yeah.
or just throwing all kinds of stuff at customers. Just because you have an email list doesn't mean you should send an email every day. Just
Exactly.
because you have an email address of your customers doesn't mean you should send them a survey every week. Just because you have a social media feed doesn't mean that you should spam your followers with sales messages all the time. Treat your customers in the way you would want them to treat you. Be human, and that is going to give you way more success than if you just do the things that you see that other people are doing, just slamming people with marketing
Washing.
messages. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. All right. I know we could go on and on here, but we're at time. David, thank you so much for all the nice perspective that you shared. Um, a great perspective, really, when it comes to marketing of the consumer by the consumer and for the consumer. It's all about the consumer, putting ourselves in their shoes. Where can future marketing leaders find you?
So my name, David Meerman Scott, is unique. I use my middle name. I'm the only David Meerman Scott in the entire world. So Google my name, you'll find me. I have a website at www.fanocracy.com if you wanted to check out more about the book we've been discussing. And on social media, Twitter, Instagram, I'm DM Scott, DMSCOTT.
All right. Is fanocracy.com. Guys, that's all we have for you today. If you'd like to see more episodes like this one, just go on to my website, dotslovesmarketing.com, or your favorite podcast player at Spotify, Apple, or YouTube. I'd like to thank Desrig and Content Allies for their support. And also, if you've got a podcast and you need that knowledge to reach more people, please go to listennetwork.co and we can help you out. Till next time, connect the dots.
Thank you for listening to the Marketing Leadership Podcast, brought to you by Listen Network. There will be links to resources mentioned in today's show notes. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a 5-star review and be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode.